But I don't blame them for the way they were, because what's happening over there, like, it's kind of crazy. Like, there's people getting murdered during prayers, stuff like that. Like, that's what you see on the news.
That the Israelis are murdering the Palestinians?
Yeah, like, that's stuff you see on the news. We're not even sure if it's real or not, but I don't blame the Palestinians for reacting the way they did.
That they like punched people and shoved people and stuff like that. Is that okay?
They're kind of angry, you know?
I went to York University in Toronto to ask students what they knew about the violent protests that occurred last week when Israeli soldiers visited campus to discuss the Arab-Israeli conflict after being invited by a Jewish student group. I wanted to hear if students knew about the anti-Semitic statements that were being hurled and the violence that took place on the part of the pro-Palestinian protesters. What I found to be astonishing is that some of the individuals I talked with didn't want to admit that the anti-Semitic slurs were spouted forth, and they tried to put the blame for the violence on the other side. Last week, some Israeli soldiers came to talk about Israel and about the Arab-Israeli conflict, and there was a protest. So what do you know about the protest?
Honestly, I've heard from some friends, which are kind of part of it, and then they're saying how the Palestinians were there and peacefully protesting, and then supposedly the other group started using violence.
People just like stormed the whole building and were yelling and screaming and chanting.
It was pretty upsetting that even in today's day and age, we still have people coming to cause violence on campus for people who just want to express their opinions. It was kind of scary because I easily could have been at that event, and there was an ambulance called, and it's just very upsetting.
You heard about the protest, and you said you were there, right?
Yes, I was there.
Okay, so what do you think about what happened there?
So basically, there were a lot of protesters for Palestine against an event for IDF soldiers who were on campus.
Yeah.
And actually, what I saw, the protesters were so peaceful. They didn't do anything violent.
There was a lot of chaos and violence and stuff going on. That was screaming. Just didn't look good for the school, to be honest. Didn't look good. It wasn't a good look.
Was it the protesters who were becoming violent?
It looked like that, to be honest. Yeah.
The violence, I think that's just unacceptable at any school, right?
You can be against or for whatever you want. It's, freedom of speech, but I feel like the whole point of the event was, go and listen to what they have to say. If you want to challenge them and ask questions, especially, if you have good points and you want to ask them these questions, that's, I don't think that yelling and screaming and starting violence is going to get anyone on your side, no matter what you're standing for, right?
In the video, what I seen, it looked like the protesters were being violent.
So you guys reject that, you say that it didn't happen. They didn't say these hateful quotes, and no violence happened.
No, not from our side. Not from our side. I have videos of them attacking us.
There was a guy from the other side. He wore a MAGA hat. He called the protesters bad things. He was so racist and sexist and Islamophobic. He was go back to your countries, you get our protection from us, and honestly I heard chants words from them, not us at all.
What did they chant?
They were you get your protection from us, not just this guy. I heard it from multiple persons from their side.
Did you hear about the violence that took place? There was punching and scuffling around, and also some of the things that were being said, go back to the ovens. You heard of those comments? Yeah. So you haven't heard how a fight started, and about how some really angry statements were said, go back to the ovens, and from Toronto to Gaza, globalize the Intifada. So these are really anti-Jewish statements, anti-Israel statements. And I've heard a couple people share that they think that that the pro-Jewish side is the one who started the fight. But according to the news stories out there, that's not what's being shared. Do you think that there's a missing story in the news, or do you think other people are sharing another narrative?
Honestly, there's a missing story, but even if the missing story was missing, what happened was not proper in a sense,
Did you also hear about the slogans they were saying, like "Go back to the ovens," and the other one where they were saying from Toronto to Gaza, like let's start a global intifada?
I did not hear that.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm not that educated on the topic, I'm not gonna lie. So I can't really share too many opinions. I just don't think that schools should have any violence. It's a safe space, right?
Yeah, those are all terrible things that I heard when I was in Israel, and there were riots there and people being attacked and stabbed and shot. Same exact words, intifada, intifada is what they shout there, and they were shouting the same thing here on campus. So it's not like we don't have knives here that could be used for the same purposes if they wanted to take it to the next step on their end. So it's really disheartening, really, because I thought in Canada we might be past that, but looks like we're not.
There were chants about the Intifada, but that's it. Like there were no ovens or sort of that at all. It was like Viva Palestine and Viva Intifada.
I saw signs all over the campus where it said, "Don't let them in. No Israeli soldiers on campus." And it said protest, protest. And then I heard
there was even a picture of an edited photo of an Israeli soldier strangling a child.
Right. I heard that was edited. I heard it wasn't real. It was photoshopped.
They had put around campus a flyer with which had been modified, but it was of an Israeli soldier strangling a child. It wasn't a real image. They had edited it. Yeah.
That's like stuff like that's unfortunate that it's taking place, and I feel like we need to be more conscious of everybody that's around us.
Did you think there was any violence, or you didn't hear about any slurs that were said or anything?
I don't think there was violence on the people protesting for Palestine, but I think the people that the people supporting Israel and everything, that ended up coming.
But I don't blame them for the way they were, because what's happening over there, like, it's kind of crazy. Like, there's people getting murdered during prayers, stuff like that. Like, that's what you see on the news.
That the Israelis are murdering the Palestinians?
Yeah, like, that's stuff you see on the news. We're not even sure if it's real or not, but I don't blame the Palestinians for reacting the way they did.
That they like punched people and shoved people and stuff like that. Is that okay?
They're kind of angry, you know?
You didn't see any punching or shoving?
I saw punching, but it came first from the other side, because they were trying to rip like the flags of the Palestinian flags.
That too. They were trying to rip it.
Like the protesters were retaliating against like the first attacks from the other side. Yeah. Other than that, it was it was peaceful. Even the chants were not anti-Semitic.
Do you think the school will punish those who were involved in trying to hurt others, like there was punching and scuffling, or you think they're going to just let it go?
Absolutely not. If you looked at the email that the dean sent, she was intentionally ambiguous when she said there were groups here to cause violence. That could obviously refer to the JDL as well as the pro-BDS protesters, and I think she intentionally left it ambiguous like that, even though the JDL did not come to cause violence. They were there to protect people for a good reason, because there was violence and they knew there would be. So by leaving things ambiguous like that, she's leaving one foot out the door to make sure that she doesn't actually have to respond to these allegations.
Do you think that the people who became violent, the protesters who became violent, are going to get in trouble for that, or you think it's going to slide?
I feel like it's going to slide, to be honest.
Probably slide.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there is any room for violence at a protest?
Oh, no, for sure not. Okay. Not at all. I think that in a protest, you have to be required to be civil and hear, both sides of the story, regardless on our right. I feel like that violence on both sides definitely shouldn't have been a thing, so I think it was wrong on both ends for sure.
I'm Abagail Hamman with Rebel News. Click and subscribe to never miss a video.